What is my cutouts cardboard ninja here, coming at you with the planned balance changes in the upcoming season. There's a lot of stuff that they planned on changing. It's all live on the test servers right meow if you're interested in downloading and testing it. So first and foremost, they're going to change ram damage. First, all ram damage 10% higher. They're mad at it. They're like, no, it's not enough. But they're reducing the bonus to ram damage for bumpers, passive melee weapons, the Goblin, Gremlin, and Draco, and they're just nerfing the Bastion entirely and removing any bonus that it gets. They're not saying how much they're removing, because they didn't bother to list that, but their reasoning is that there's a massive difference between if you have a melee weapon on your build or not. And I think this has been always in the case. It's always been the case in Crossout. It makes sense, right? Like, I don't know why they're changing it. I don't think anyone really asked for this, but the overall idea is that currently in Crossout, and has been the case eternally in Crossout, you put melee on your build to either A, protect yourself from specific collisions, or B, be hyper effective when you go to ram or push someone. Take out wheels, things like that, or ram into hovers, and you get the idea. They're for some reason not unhappy with this, and they're like, no, we want standard collisions to be better than they are now, and we want collisions with melee to be brought down. They're trying to level that out, and that doesn't make any sense. Why would you even have a melee part if you're trying to level it out? But that's what they want. The Yongwang, Fortune, and Porcupine, they are going through with the inertia changes. For those of us who don't know, if you don't have a Yongwang, Fortune, or Porcupine, the momentum of your vehicle translates into your weapon when you fire it. So that means if you're traveling at 90 kilometers an hour in one direction and you fire your Porcupines behind you, there's a chance they might stand still because they'll drop out of your vehicle. And, because 90 kilometers in one direction away from where they're being launched, they don't launch at 90 kilometers an hour. So you catch the drift. So they're changing that. They're removing the inertia. Now, if you're a driver like me, I said this before, I'll say it again. If you're a driver like me, there's a huge buff because I suck fucking dick with the Yongwang, and this is a huge buff for me. Like, honestly, I think that'll make this weapon very usable until I get further in these patch notes. Continuing on, we have the Tempest. Rate of fire increased by 15% and heating rate reduced by 20%. As a result of the above changes, the time to overheat is increased by 9%. Basically, the Tempest autocannon has sucked, and they're saying they want to make this sucked autocannon better. Same with the Prosecutor 76mm. They're increasing projectile speed. These are the linear front-facing cannons with a whopping thick 1 pin of penetration. The penetration ability was increased by 25% to 50%, so that is how much bullet damage is necessary to be dealt before that triggers the explosion, and they've increased that. They're hoping to improve the efficiency of the weapon. The Carapace, the dubious, used to be the cabin with the dubious honor of having the lowest top speed of any cabin in the entire game. It is the one that is for tanks. Its perk is the same as, it's basically a step upgrade of the Echo, and they're saying that it's not reloading fast enough, so they're giving it 10% more reload from 30 to 40, and the active time is increased by 2 seconds from 6 to 8. This actually almost gets you an additional shot in when the perk is on. That's actually not bad. Clarinetto. Everyone knows this to be one of the, if not the worst weapon in the game, next to the Enlightenment, but they're saying, no, hold on a second. We refuse to change the mechanics of this thing, so we're changing everything about it dramatically, like the stats. So they're adding a perk. So it now has a perk instead of having no perk whatsoever. And that perk is going to be very similar to the Yongwang, which means the more stuff you have on your build, the more that takes energy that is not a gun, it's going to increase the damage of the toe. Energy drain doubled from 10 to 20. The power score basically doubled from 1350 to 2700, and they added 150 point to damage on hit. So in case you guys didn't know, the Clarinetto is 100% explosive, and so it did 0 bullet damage. They're just straight up adding 150 bullet damage to this. That's actually a huge damage increase. And in addition to that, they're adding 100% penetration ability, meaning that it has to do all 150 of its damage before it explodes. Control of the vehicle now returns to the player in the second phase of Rocket's flight. So what this means is you launch the Clarinetto and you drive it around. When you press the right, when you activate the gun again, it activates the rocket's boost. It drives faster and linearly. You cannot deactivate it. During that time, you immediately return back to your car. You no longer have to watch it fly to its target, hit or miss. You no longer have to see it because you've already committed it to a path. So that's a buff. I mean, It's not that great, but that's a buff. The time before you can transition from the first phase of the rocket's flight to the second phase is reduced from 1 second to 0.3 seconds. So originally, once you launched, you had to control it for a full second. Now you can control it significantly less time. Sped up the return control of the vehicle after the rocket has detonated. So for those of us who have ever played the Clarinetto, you know that when you hit something, the camera lingers there. They're removing that lingering as well. The comment is it's a weak weapon with unique mechanic. The perk, the damage, energy drain, power score changes should prevent the weapon from having an increased efficiency at low power score as it was before, but make it more relevant in medium and high power scores. These dumb fucking motherfuckers. This is only going to improve it in low power score. You're just going to shove things that cost 1 energy on the belt. They just can't learn. Learn to learn. The elephant, for those of us who didn't know, the elephant and the narwhal shared projectile velocities. That's the reason why the narwhal, the elephant was like maybe 200 meters a second slower, but basically it had damn near the exact same projectile travel time and arcs as the narwhal. And look at what they're doing. They're making it a mini narwhal. The projectile now deals cryogenic damage upon detonation, 25% instead of 35% of the narwhal. The radius of the explosion is reduced by 30% because originally its blast radius was higher and is now a cryogenic weapon. This is removing its previous perk of while it's reloading, I believe it had durability increase. The Thresher, the melee weapon, this perk's damage bonus was increased from 7 to 8%, and the perk now stacks up to 6 times instead of 5. They claim that Thresher had low efficiency, and the changes are to increase efficiency when actively utilizing the Thresher's perk. Executioner 88mm. This is the exact same as the Prosecutor 76mm. They're increasing projectile speed by 18%, and penetration is now up to 50%. Here's the thing, though. The Executioner actually still has decent penetration. 2 pins may not seem like much, but it can be deep. The AC-64 Joule damage increase 12%. Why? It sucks. They say. ATGM Flute, the perk, which used to be you launch your rockets and let them fly as long as possible before impact to increase their damage, now just says hitting the target increases damage by 14%, and the bonus stacks up to 5 times, and every time you miss, it reduces that number. And the base damage was increased by 38%. So fuck that flight time shit. No, just hit your target, and you do 38% more damage base, which is actually pretty huge. And then in addition to that, for every successive hit, you increase your damage by 14% per. This is the equivalent of the Mammoth, basically increasing its damage off of more hits. Yongwang. Remember what I said earlier about Yongwang getting good? Well, let's see. Added mechanic to reduce the number of projectiles in the volley from 5 to 2 if the Yongwang is upside down. That is a huge nerf. That is, 60% damage nerf if it's mounted upside down underneath your cabin. Suck dick, heavy cabins. Hey, remember when you were playing that heavy cabin Yongwang and you're like, wow, my Yongwang is protected and I can deal damage. This is great. Not anymore, you can't. The perks bonus from all modules of every rarity is now 1% higher, and the durability is increased from 465 to 560. That durability increase is coming because everyone's going to have to mount their Yongwangs right side up as God intended. Raijin, this is the new gun that everybody's been killing noobs with. Damage reduced by 11%. Nerf. Durability reduced from 1440 to 1281. Nerf. Perk is and damage bonus increased from 7 to 12%, which is a huge buff. And perk now deactivates 10 seconds after the last hit. So doing the math, let me just do the math in my head. 4%. Okay, so this is going to keep the subsequent shots the same about as it used to be. So there you go. Basically, they're trying to keep the damage from successive shots up, but the initial shot goes down. So the perk now deactivates 10 seconds after the last hit. So as we all know, the Raijin maintained its perk indefinitely. So the idea is that if you had a 3-stack, you could just sit on it. And the next motherfucker that came up to you, well, they got all of it right into the face. So they nerfed it. Rotation speed reduced by 32%. So now it's also harder to aim. Comment, with its simplicity of use, the weapon is extremely effective at a wide range of power scores and shows high results, not only in clan confrontation, but also clan wars. With these changes, the weapon will be more demanding on player skill, while leaving unchanged the maximum possible damage and survivability, provided that you have a fully accumulated perk. The Tachi. Now, this is a minor aside. The Tempura was nerfed recently. Unfortunately, the Tempura did not deserve the nerf, and I really hope they revert it. They reduced the range of the Tempura so much so that the graphic of the damage extends, the graphic of the shot extends further than the actual damage zones. Well, Tachi's getting nerfed also. So step 1, if the direction of the vehicle's movement does not match the direction of the Tachi's activation, the length of the damage zone will be significantly increased. What this means is the current range of the Tachi right now can only be attained if you mount this shit facing sideways. They have been trying to institute the San Francisco drift, Tokyo drift shit, and they're enforcing it. Everybody keeps putting the Tachi and the Tempura on the front of their cars because it's the only way to use it. Let's be real. You guys know it and I know it. It's the only way to make it function at all. So they're tired of it. They're like, no, we want this shit on the side of your car. So if you have it on the front of your car, get ready to have a damage zone that's equal to the damage zone of the Tempura. In case you're wondering, that's the new nerfed damage zone of the Tempura, which, by the way, is like 3 pins. So that's nothing, just so you know. In addition to that, the active time was reduced from 2 seconds to 1.2 seconds. A colossal nerf. Just ridiculous nerf. Damage increased by 125% base. Now, why would they do that? The base damage is, if I recall correctly, 40, by the way, if you guys are wondering. So 125% means that it's going from 40 to 100? Going to about 100? Let's find out. Sorry. 40 times 1.25 equals 50. What? Damn it. That is not correct. It's 40... times 2.25. Sorry about that. 90. I was close. Thought it was 100. It's actually 90. So that means that the the Tachi's base damage is now 90 instead of 40, which is good. The activation time, however, has been dramatically cut by just so much. The reason why that you wanted to have the activation time to be as long as it was because you wanted the time to drag it through someone's whole build. You're probably not going to be able to do that now, but the sheer fact that they're increasing the damage so dramatically, the base damage so dramatically, is indicative of the fact that it was impossible to get the fucking perk to work. So in case you guys didn't know, that your speed determined the damage that the Tachi did at time of activation. Anything that interrupted your speed, anything. You hit a bump, some guy crashes into you, your teammate crashes into you, you accidentally hit a wall, anything. Any of that shit happens, and the Tachi's damage immediately plummeted. Remember, you only got 1 chance to deal damage. Only the first tick against your opponent does full damage, while the remaining ticks do effectively 0. They do 5%. So, with that in mind, they are increasing the damage because of the fact that it's almost impossible to get that first tick of damage, if we're being real. If we're being real, it's just not possible. So, their comment, it's too effective at 7,000 to 9,000 when mounted in front. Similarly to the Tempura. Wah! People were using a weapon that we released in the game and were having fun. Wah! So they nerfed it into the ground. This will now function like a Tempura of epic rarity when mounted this way, and will not be affected when mounted in other directions, which is in line with its original intent. Its original intent was to be non-functional, and they're making it so. Damn it. I feel like an idiot for buying 2 Tachis. I was going to fuse them and have some. Nope, not anymore. Yoten, Frost Puddle Thrower. The puddle now reduces power and speed by 17% instead of 33%, because fuck you. Yeah, they were saying that the deceleration was too strong when combined with freezing over a large area. What? The fuck are these guys smoking? The Yoten is shit. It's genuinely not very good, and the slowing effect was largely ignorable. So, I can't with this. That is ridiculous. By the way, they have their own little formatting error here, because this here says Aurora. Aurora should be bolded, but whatever. Aurora, heating rate reduced from 20 to 10% per second. What they mean to say is nerfing the Aurora's heating speed by 50%. This happens every motherfucking time. I keep saying it. I'll say it again. Every single time these motherfuckers release a fused weapon into the game, something that people can get their hands on, they nerf it into the ground. What was the most recent fusion for the Aurora? Was it heat speed increase? Yes, it was. Oh no! Were people using their heat speed increased Auroras to heat people up faster? Oh, well, time to nerf it base. So now your fused Aurora, I've said this shit before, your fused Aurora is now less effective than an unfused Aurora days ago. Fucking did it again. God damn it. Spectre 2. Damage reduced by 3%. Perks damage bonus reduced but from 4% to 3%. Jesus. And yeah, they're saying high efficiency at 8 to 10k, which is clan confrontation. It was quite close to the legendary counterpart, the Aspect, and yes, it was. People asked me multiple times on my stream, was the Spectre too good? I said it was great. Yeah. No, it's great. Its perk is great. Its damage is great. It's literally basically just a little bit, just the teensiest bit worse than the Aspect. Well, they saw that, and they're nerfing it, so it's just even a little bit more worse than the Aspect. The Manitou. This is the cabin that nobody uses, that reloads revolvers, and they're going to make it usable now all of a sudden. The maximum bonus to revolver reload speed is an increase from 30 to 50%. So if you use this perk, you can reload yourself 50% faster and get that 20% damage bonus. And they removed the reloading of the perk. What does that mean? It means that there's no cooldown. You can always make sure that every single one of your reloads for revolvers can use the Manitou's perk, period, from here on out. That's a huge buff, but eh. Echo. Perk bonus is the same thing as the Carapace earlier. Echo. The weapon bonus to reload speed is going from 50 to 65%. Woo! Smoking hot reloads. And the perk's active time increased from 7 to 10 seconds. Wow, you might be able to get 4 shots off with cannons with the new Echo perk. That's pretty good. Traction significantly increased. So, I don't know how this is going to work. So, the reason why tracks are even viable right now, even remotely, is because when you're driving them, you can actually turn, and your vehicle doesn't flip. They achieved that when they reduced the traction that they gave all tracks. They're now putting the traction back, which means that you're probably going to end up flipping over again. So, I mean, 6 to 1, half dozen the other. Goliath, the bonus to durability of attached parts increased from 10 to 25%. This encourages people to build on the fucking tracks, which is currently not used very often, and will continue to not be. Like, why the fuck would we do that? It's terrible. The Garidia. These are the new legs that at one point were considered to be the best legs in the game, and they nerfed them all the way into the fucking ground. They are bringing it back. They're bringing it back a little bit. Durability increased from 410 to 435. Tonnage increased from 1400 to 1500. And they slightly increased traction. They're like, whoopsie. Partial reversal of recent changes that reduce Garidia's efficiency beyond expected levels. You mean into extinction. Has anyone seen a Garidia walker within the last, I don't know, month? Probably not. Meat Grinder, massive numbers of changes. The perk's maximum bonus is now accumulated at 30,000 of the 30,000 kilograms of mass instead of 20,000. The perk's maximum damage bonus has been doubled from 200 to 400%. The added damage protection bonus perk equal to 200% at mass of 30,000, and durability reduced from 820 to 550. Mass reduced from 1100 to 730, and fire and cryogenic damage resistance increased from 25% to 40%. So the reason why they're doing this is because lower power scores, the augers are too strong. Higher power scores, the augers are irrelevant. They're trying to make that the opposite. Lower power scores, the augers are going to be probably destroyed at just about the same rate, but I think they're going to be destroyed a little bit faster. But at higher power scores, with a potential 200% damage resistance, everyone's like, 200%, do they get healed when they take damage? No. Go watch my penetration versus resistance video. It's damage protection, 200%. Go there. Go watch that video if you don't understand what that means. It's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of like 75. No, it's not. It's going to be like 60% damage resistance. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Long story short, they're going to make it survive a little longer in higher power scores and a little lower in others. Icarus 4, Icarus 7, nerfs. Flight altitude reduced by 1.33 for the Icarus 4s. Flight altitude reduced by 3 full pins and is now the same as the Icarus 4. After this change, tonnage reduced from 1350 to 1100, and tonnage reduced from 900 to 740. Once again, they released fused hovers, and once again, people purchased fused hovers, and once again, they nerfed fused hovers, all because people decided to actually take them up on their offer to have fused hovers. What's their explanation? Hovers are the best choice for using with firearms, which, by the way, is guns, which is every weapon in Crossout, because of a number of advantages, one of which is the flight altitude of an armored car. Changing the altitude will help ground vehicles destroy parts that are mounted on top of vehicles with hovers. Changing the tonnage to help make some builds lighter. That doesn't help make some builds lighter. It forces people to bring more hovers. Once again, it doesn't matter. Remember, hey guys, remember when you were asking questions to everybody who you knew, like your clanmates and stuff? And you're like, hey clanmates, how many of these fused Icarus 7s do I need to be good? And then they told you a number, and you picked up that number. Well, because you got that number, fuck you. That's not enough. That's not enough. No, you don't. You need more than that now. You need 2 more of these. You need 4 more of these. Get stuffed. Continuing forward, Big Ram. Speed and leg mode reduced from 55 back down to 45. Originally, the speed and leg mode was 45, but unfortunately, they said that was just too slow. They're like, this isn't dominant enough. And so they increased Big Ram leg movement speed to 55. They are changing it back. And they're also nerfing Big Ram traction. The reason why is because it stands out for its parameters relative to other legs, which may be exacerbated once hovers are weakened. With these changes, it will become the slowest mechanical legs, but we'll be able to compensate for this with the wheel mode. Changing the traction will slightly weaken its ability to push other vehicles. By the way, for those of us who don't know, you couldn't push other vehicles with the Big Ram legs in the first place, so expect these things to be similar to the Gritty, and you're going to be sliding all over the fucking place. The Athena, the effect of spread... damn. Almost had a perfect run, guys, but try again. Athena, the effect of speed on the spread is reduced in half. So basically, this is now a better weapon on hovers. Their comment on the Athena, lack of efficiency. The change will simplify the damage dealing and use of the perk will help the Athena to perform well on fast vehicles. Yeah, I know. They're really reluctant to buff the Athena for multiple reasons. Those reasons being it's the first and only weapon currently in the game that was made entirely exclusively from pack weapons. So they're being a little ginger with that. They're being a little ginger with the Athena. The Scatty, damage increased by 12%. Reason, not enough damage. So for those of us who do not know, I already did the testing. 3 Scatty currently in game does less damage than 2 Remedies. 2 Remedies does not do good damage. And that's the reason why they need to buff the Scatty. It's just a bit of dog shit. Harvester perk now accumulates in 0.5 seconds of contact instead of 1 second, and stacks to 8 instead of 7. The reason? Just not effective. Low efficiency of the weapon. And that's true. Like, in all honesty, they need a different perk for the Harvester. Period. If they want the damage of the Harvester to be higher, just nut up and increase the fucking damage of the Harvester. Just make the base damage of the Harvester, I don't know, give it a 50% damage increase, make it just actually damaging, and then give it a different perk. That's what they should do, but they're not going to. Kaiju, massive buff. Huge buff to the Kaiju. And I'll explain the reason why after I read it. Removed the negative effects during charging for the Kaiju. So for those of us who do not recall, the Kaiju has a massive debuff on it for some stupid reason, that as you're charging it up, you lose power, so your vehicle stops moving, you lose turret traversability, everything is stupid, and it sucks. The damage is being increased, and that's being removed. The damage is being increased outright by 8%. So this time, instead of increasing the length of the burst, which dramatically increases damage, they're just giving a little 8% damage increase. Rotation speed increased by 80%. So this thing will now be able to swivel like a motherfucker. And the charge shot can now only be held for 4 seconds. So the idea is, that is a nerf. That last part, just a little bit of a nerf. It means that you can't charge it all the way up and then hold it indefinitely, and then hold an angle indefinitely, and then wait for someone to turn, and then get bopped. They're nerfing that. So, why are they making these changes? Well, they're saying it's currently an unpopular weapon. We only used it in combination with legs, and they're not, which are not negative, which are not hindered by its negative effects. The change should fix the situation, make it more efficient to use other moving parts. So here's the deal. Why are they buffing the Kaiju? That's what they said, but in reality, this is straight up dead ass because of the Devourer. The Devourer and the Kaiju basically are the same. 2 Devourers do the exact same damage as the Kaiju per shot, and two Devourers don't have any of the negative effects that the Kaiju has when it's charging. They're basically the same gun, honestly. The only difference is that the Devourer was a better version of the Kaiju. Now this brings the Kaiju closer to the Devourer a little bit. Mind you, the Kaiju only fires a burst, I think, of 11 projectiles or something like that, whereas the Devourer fires a burst of like 40. So the Devourer is still way ahead of the Kaiju for damage, but this gets them a little bit closer. Cyclone, nerf. Maximum rate of fire is now achieved in 6 seconds instead of 4 seconds. They're walking back that buff that they gave it earlier. Takes just a little bit longer to reach maximum rate of fire. The Draco, damage reduced 12%. Why? Too good. They kept looking at the firebug and they're like, why you suck? And they're like, oh, because Draco too strong. This is for the 4th nerf in a row for the Draco. And by the way, again, I don't want to beat this dead ass horse, but I'm going to beat it. Once again, this is because they gave out fused Dracos to everyone, and the fused Dracos had damage, and they had fire rate, they had rate of weapon speed, which is basically range of fire, and they're nerfing it. They're like, whoopsie, we gave away free Dracos, and by reducing damage by 12%, the fused Dracos are now going to be weaker than they are right now. The base Dracos are right now. Yokozuna, remember when the Yokozuna sucked and nobody used it? Oh man, that was cool. And then they buffed it and now everyone fucking uses it? Well, they're nerfing it again because everyone's using it. So mass limit reduced from 21 to 19,000 kilograms. Power reduced by 9% and perk active time reduced from 13 seconds to 10 seconds. Exactly the reasons why I said it. So after several changes, it's gone from being forgotten to one of the most popular. They're trying to bring that back. Apollo 4, they are giving it even more hit points. They keep dumping hit points into the Apollo. Do you know why? Because it keeps fucking exploding. It's too big. Look, there was a point in time when the Apollo was the only in-game generator, and so its stats were comparable against nothing because there were no other generators. Well, when they released other generators, they needed to give the Apollo a pass, which is to say they need to go back over it and determine whether or not the Apollo needed a buff or not, and they didn't do that. And so right now, despite all the changes they keep pooping out, the Apollo is still falling way behind, even though it gives one more energy than the other legendary, I think it's a Thor, at the same power score. Basically at the same power score, because of the fact that it's just too big. It is too big. It's big, and weapons do too much damage. So they keep giving it more and more hit points, and more power to them. That's a pretty decent. That's nearly 100 additional hit points. So hopefully that's enough. But this is also exacerbated due to the fact that the Apollo used to explode for almost no damage. Now it explodes for more than a gas generator used to, and because of the size of the Apollo, its blast connectivity, where it hits on the parts of your build, is so large it's damn near impossible to protect. To be honest, I have not used my Apollo 4 ever since they released the Thor. Super honest. And I went from the Thor to the Odin, and I even though I have a fused Apollo 4, I still don't look back at it. And the reasons why are obvious, and they got to keep giving it more hit points. Honestly, the answer is more hit points, less mass. Continuing on, or they could actually do a rework of the Apollo and decrease its size by 1 pin in every dimension. That would do it. And ignore the durability increase. Keep it at 427, but make it a smaller target. Scorpion, this is a buff. It's not a very large one, but it's a buff. The damage reduction rate upon piercing parts reduced by 15%. So as you guys know, the Scorpion loses damage as it passes through parts because they hate our freedom, and they're making that reduced. Basically, they're saying we want more damage to pass deeper into builds, and the reason why, and this should be obvious, because the Scorpion's perk doesn't do anything anymore. Yep. So you might be thinking, what? What do you mean the Scorpion's perk doesn't do anything anymore? So way back in the day when the 7-pin rule existed, jerk, I'll make this brief. The Scorpion's damage didn't get reduced based on the durability of the part it hit. It got reduced based only on the number of parts hit. So what that meant was that if you hit 3 parts, it would do 100% damage to the first part, 90% damage to the second part, 80% damage to the second part, and 80% damage to the third part, and 70% damage to the fourth. Yada, yada, yada. You get the idea. It's just reduced by 10% each part hit. That's not what it does anymore. The damage is reduced based on the amount of hit points the first thing hit has. So the Scorpion, which used to be this uber-penetrating weapon, now is defeated by anything with hit points. So anything with hit points that's struck by a Scorpion stops it. Just stops it dead. Penetration just stops. And it's bad. So this is a buff to that. They're saying, look, we want it to penetrate just a little bit deeper, but it's not going to matter, honestly. I'm not going to lie to you. 15% is a buff, and it's not nothing, but it's also not enough, because the idea is if your Scorpion shot hits a track, if your Scorpion shot hits an APC part, if your Scorpion part hits anything from the cryogenic faction, which reduces bullet damage immediately on contact by something like 15%, if it hits any of those things, your Scorpion's not going through. You're not hitting anything. And by the way, they say that the Scorpion's perk is rarely implemented in battles right now. And it's true. When was the last time any of you guys remember seeing a video from a YouTube creator popping gens with the Scorpion? When was the last time you saw anyone pop anyone's build with the Scorpion ever. Like, it was a while ago, and that's because a while ago it was when the Scorpions were 7-pin ruled. They'd hit you, but if your generator was within 7 pins, they'd pop your generator and you'd be fucked. And that's what made the Scorpion good. It no longer does that, and so it's currently still in a bad state. But this is a buff. Porcupine nerf, blast radius reduced by 11%. People are taking too much damage from those porcupines. Reload time increased from 3 to 3.5 seconds. They want less barrels in the field. Maximum ammo reduced from 16 to 12. Comment, extremely efficient weapon with very high damage and rate of fire, even for relics. Reducing the maximum ammo will additionally limit the possibility of uncontrollably throwing barrels all over the battlefield. And that's where we are. And that's what's coming. They're nerfing stuff and buffing stuff, but mostly nerfing stuff. What do you guys think? Ram damage, I don't like it. I think people who dedicate the tonnage and the space and have the build creativity to have melee weapons in their build in the right places should be rewarded, and I don't think that they should change that at all. Also, I don't believe that they should nerf the Bastion, but whatever. The Yongwang Fortune Porcupine build, I mean, this is going to be great for me. Autocannon buffs, cannon buffs, multiple cabin buffs, weapon changes. I think for the most part, I'm not against them. For the most part, the Yongwang nerf is kind of a little brutal, but it is what it is. I mean, this is actually going to... Actually, I just realized this is going to super fuck over a lot of Yongwang levies. So if you actually run a Yongwang levy, now you have to top mount, not top mount, but, mount appropriately your Yongwangs on your Leviathan so that they then fire all the balls instead of just 2. Instead of that massive damage nerf. The Raijin, I would say it's a long overdue nerf, but the Raijin just got in the game, right? Yeah. Yeah, I like the Echo buff. I'm a fan of the Echo. I always have been. The track change, which is going to make track suck again, I feel is probably a mistake. Yeah. Huge nerf to hovers. Welcome back to the Get Fucked Club. If you thought you had enough hovers, you didn't. You didn't. And, yeah. That's all that... also, the massive change to the Kaiju is good. It's going to make it actually... it's going to make it a pre-devourer. And that's pretty cool. Cyclone nerf. I think almost everyone saw Cyclone nerf coming because Cyclones are used almost exclusively in every power score possible. They're very good guns. They've always been very good guns, but people are now noticing how good they can be, and that's a problem. Yeah. So, get on the test server. Test it out. Manitou cabin buff, guys. Manitou cabin buff. All right, guys. Thank you for your time. Peace.